Godzilla vs. Kong. This movie is just amazing. It's like the entire monsterverse was kind of leading to this point. Of course, this isn't their first fight. Both Godzilla and Kong broke out of their monochrome restraints and burst into colour to fight one another. Thankfully, this film is a lot better than that one though. The original has its place in history, but ultimately struggles due to the overall pacing and underwhelming special effects. Additionally, I'm thankful this isn't just a straightforward remake. It manages to satiate both fans of Godzilla and Kong, and also chuck another legacy monster into the mix. The movie opens to a lackadaisical Kong somewhere on Skull Island. He uses this move again and javelins it skyward, putting a hole in the ceiling of this containment thingy. So off the bat, we're given an explanation as to why Kong was absent during the Godzilla movies. This containment stops Godzilla being able to track Kong. That's cool, that's fine, makes sense. I'm satisfied with that. Here we're introduced to Gia, the shining star of this movie. She has a bond with Kong which is portrayed expertly and subtly. Gia is deaf, so all of her acting is physical, reactive, and/or facial acting, just like Kong. Also, she's an Iwi. Her people originate from Skull Island, just a couple of similarities between her and Kong. There's also Eileen, Gia's adoptive mother. She's nice too. She's in charge of Kong around here. Transition to Godzilla going nuts, just fucking shit up. It's mainly targeted at this Apex Corporation. To keep things short, Godzilla is detecting another Titan in this area. Now Madison from King of the Monsters is back, as is Mark, her father. So there are two human stories, one for each titular monster. Though I will preface by saying I personally only think Madison was brought back for the sake of having Millie Bobby Brown as a face for the movie. Anyway, she insists to her father that there must be some sort of reason or pattern to Godzilla's attacks. More on that later. The very obvious villain of this movie hires this guy to try and get Eileen to bring Kong out of his enclosure to lead them into Hollow Earth, the birthplace of the Titans. Eileen begrudgingly accepts and they chain Kong to the ship and take off. Obviously Kong isn't a fan of this, but watch how easily he calms when Gia is present. Love this shot where she touches his finger. Showcases Kong's gentle nature. I also love the use of muted sound design here combined with the low angle to showcase Gia's point of view. And then the big reveal, Kong signs the word home. And it turns out he is capable of communication. That's what I'm talking about! Development! Yes! More excellent use of sound design here. Gia puts her hand to the wall and hears a very faint, muffled roar. She is the one that warns everybody that Godzilla is coming.
Godzilla.
Round one commences. Godzilla flips the board, flooding the inside. Kong is able to re-flip it, subsequently saving Gia and everyone. Kong, showcasing his intelligence, or rather emotional bond to Gia, jumps to another boat where the fight continues. They exchange blows, but ultimately Godzilla was bound to win this one. Kong narrowly escaped Godzilla's attempt to drown him. Thankfully Godzilla backs off, knowing he'd won this round and proved himself. Kong is airlifted to Antarctica, potentially a nod to the original when Kong is airlifted by comically large balloons. Kong is hesitant until Gia assured him that there may be more like him down there. They all make it to Hollow Earth. Kong fights these freakazoids, then we get a Doug sighting. Again. One more time. Nice. Madison and her friend Josh have joined forces with skeptic podcaster Bernie to infiltrate Apex. This has been consistently intertwined with the other human story, but it's kind of boring if I'm being completely honest. Josh is just kind of frustrating to watch. It doesn't feel like these three people would ever be associated with one another, so it just feels unnatural to me, in my opinion. Anyway, they stumble across a test run of Apex's newest toy, Mecha Godzilla. Bernie does the normal human thing and just says, "Robo Godzilla." Then Josh, being insufferable as always, chimes in and says,
That's Mecha Godzilla.
No, that's Mecha Godzilla.
"We're gonna have problems, me and you, lad. We're gonna have some fucking problems."
It's fantastic.
It just feels so forced. It makes me cringe. Mechagodzilla is a badass name right up until you hear someone say it in universe, and then it's ruined. We get a pretty clear demonstration of Mechagodzilla's power as he easily tears apart this skullcrawler in seconds. Back to Hollow Earth, Kong finds this axe. Giving Kong an axe is already a cool idea, But the cherry on top is that the head of the axe looks to be one of Godzilla's dorsal fins. Popping the axe into the floor here makes it react. The Apex nerds accompanying Gia and Eileen mine the ground that is now reacting, as that is the final ingredient to get Mechagodzilla up and running at full power. Coincidentally, it's also enough to trigger a reaction from the real Godzilla. He blows a hole right from the surface all the way through to Hollow Earth. Sit and twist on that, power scalers. Jesus fucking Christ. The analysis of the ground has reached Apex HQ. However, its people do not. They threaten Gia, and Kong is not gonna let that slide. Kong takes the axe and jumps through the hole, ready for round 2. They don't shy away from the obvious advantage that Godzilla has with his atomic breath. Kong uses his mobility to his advantage. I fucking love this part. Godzilla knocks Kong down and then laughs at him. Menacingly. Kong jumps back up and slams a charged axe into Godzilla's face. Oh my god! It's a good fight, but ultimately Godzilla dislocates Kong's shoulder and overpowers him. Godzilla roars in his face and Kong gives him one back. Sort of a, yeah, you won, but I'm not scared of you kind of thing. Thankfully, Godzilla leaves him be. No beheadings or Mortal Kombat finishes required for this one. Back to Madison, they're caught by Apex guards and escorted to the villain's lair. They try firing up Mechagodzilla, but he can no longer be piloted and he is now self-sustaining. Here's the big reveal. Mechagodzilla is powered by the conscience of Ghidorah. They're using one of the heads that Godzilla ripped off as its source of power. So technically this is Ghidorah. It's not explicitly stated that this is the conscience of Ghidorah acting out his will or anything, but you know, but it's Ghidorah. Mechagodzilla springs to the surface and starts putting a beat down on Godzilla. The power difference is rather stark here, but we must remember that Godzilla is fatigued from the Kong fight. We get a beam clash, and thank God, because that would have been such a missed opportunity if they hadn't done that. More brilliant, subtle acting here. Gia feels Kong's heartbeat, and they have to get him back up to help Godzilla. They use the aircraft to zap Kong back to life, and with Gia telling him that Godzilla is not the enemy, he pops his shoulder back into place and joins the fray. Godzilla powers up the axe, and Kong chops Mechagodzilla to bits, finishing it with Godzilla's signature move, ripping his head right off. Godzilla and Kong part ways, a mutual respect established between them, but there's still an understanding that Godzilla is the king of the monsters. And that's the story. In short, surprisingly good for the most part, but my main issue is Madison's place in this movie. She made sense being in King of the Monsters, and I'm all for continuity and recurring characters and all that stuff because that's something a lot of the older Godzilla movies did lack, but she doesn't have any real impact here. Seriously, take her out of the movie and the events transpire the exact same way. Well, everything but one. At the end, Kong is caught in a pinch and it looks like Mechagodzilla is about to overpower him until Josh pours liquid all over an Apex computer and it sort of frazzles Mechagodzilla so Kong can get the upper hand. I just think that's kind of lame. I think they should have had Kong win authentically here. He was getting the better of Mechagodzilla until that point anyway, so remove that. Madison, Josh, and Bernie don't really do anything. They're mostly there to reveal certain plot points, which I think would have been better reserved as plot twists. So. Also, this villain lacks any sort of real flavour. It would have been cool to see like an evil version of Mark, where he lost someone he loved during one of Godzilla's battles. Oh wait.
We did get that. Generic power-hungry rich guy's protege is Dr. Serizawa's son. And the movie didn't capitalize on this at all.
For crying out loud, SpongeBob! Also, if he's his son, wouldn't he know that Serizawa vouched for Godzilla at every turn? He literally willingly died for Godzilla. I don't know. Perhaps they had a bad relationship or something. It's not really touched upon. Wasted opportunity, really. I think Serizawa should have been the main villain. You could trim out Madison's part and have a fast-paced 90-minute monster mash. This movie could have been perfect, but whatever. The good definitely still outweighs the bad. Kaylee Hottle's performance as Gia is so brilliant that she ascends past the child actor barrier. What I mean by that is many performances from kids are good for their age. Kaylee's performance is just good, point blank. Kong gets an updated look. This movie is set a good 50 years after Skull Island, so it makes sense that he is visibly older. He's also much, much larger. almost quadruple the height he was in Skull Island. This isn't just a random change though, he was only an adolescent in Skull Island. It is acknowledged at the start of the movie that he's gotten too big over the years, so it's not just brushed over. The fights we get are perfect in my opinion. They do a fine job of representing both sides of the fan base. At the time of release, I was rooting for Kong, but in hindsight, Godzilla had to win. There's no way that he couldn't have. In contrast to the 2014 movie, Godzilla and Kong's final fight is lit up with an array of colours in the city, showcases the progression of CGI and such in the series. Also, this movie has Doug, so forget everything I said. This movie's a 10 out of 10. There's a reason it's number 1 on IMDb. Rewatching this makes me very excited for the new Empire, so while I'm here, let me get a quick wish list in. Please keep Gia as the human lead. Make Madison important again. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but it must be quite expensive keeping Millie Bobby Brown on, so you might as well use her talent. We need some funny scenes with Zuko. Kong needs an authentic win. Godzilla needs an authentic win. Most importantly, more Doug. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.